The XY Advisor podcast is intended for professional financial advisors. This content is created in partnership with our sponsor, Net Wealth Investments Limited, ABN 85090 569 109, AFSL 230975, and is limited to publicly available information. Before acting on any general advice, you should consider whether appropriate and obtain financial advice from a qualified financial advisor. XY Advisor does not hold an AFS license and does not provide any financial advice or services or endorse any general advice. If a PDS or IM exists, you should obtain a copy and review it thoroughly before making a decision.
AdviceTech. As if it wasn't enough to be across TMDs, Alpha, Beta, Rule of 72, and all the other nuances of financial advice. Now, advisors are expected to be across all the technology options too, and there's so many of them. But never fear, Peita D is here. Join me each week on a journey of discovery through the software and apps on offer for advisors and advice businesses. So let's dive in, fellow advice explorers.
This episode is proudly brought to you by NetWealth. For over 21 years, NetWealth has provided market-leading technology, excellent customer support, and expertise to help wealth businesses thrive. As the financial advice landscape changes, it's important to embrace new technology to enhance the way you run your business. With change comes your chance to use advanced technology, reshape your client experience, and see wealth differently. Visit the website to learn how NetWealth can support your advice and wealth business.
Hello and welcome to the XY Advice Tech podcast. I'm Peita Diamond-Titus, and this week we're going to deep dive into the width and breadth of Microsoft 365. And joining me here today is a podcast host, a meat smoker, a GoProing skier, and a Queensland Reds rugby union fan. Thank you so much for joining me on the show, Tom Freer.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Oh, that's a fair intro. Yeah. I didn't know I did half of that stuff, but anyway.
Yeah, you've done them once and I've dug them out of the social media
out of the
files.
Archives. Nice.
Exactly,
Can't hide on social media.
Oh, no. You know, how glad are we? I'm so glad that I didn't grow up in my teens and 20s when social media existed.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be here today, I'm sure.
Correct. Now, I'm really keen to sort of dive into all things Microsoft, but I did sort of want to get to know you better via you as a user of technology first. So Tell me, what is your most used emoji? Do you use emojis?
I do use emojis, and it depends what mood I'm in. But the thumbs up gets everything. That's pretty much the one. There are some other ones that do tend to go in there when not in the right mood, but that's all right.
The thumbs up. That's now that I think about it, that's quite an Aussie bloke thing, right? I mean, I'm sure internationally, so. They go. When
you put that question to me, I was looking through my phone. I do a lot of thumbs ups, and it's just it could be for anything. It's thanks, hello, whatever.
It's generically acceptable. I love it.
That's right.
Now, if you had to delete all but 3 apps from your smartphone, you could only have 3. Which ones would you keep?
Definitely the phone, because I do prefer to talk.
Okay.
Chat gets used a lot, so I surprisingly WhatsApp, because I actually use a lot of WhatsApp, which is good.
Okay.
And if I really pulled it down to running the business, it would be Microsoft Teams.
Teams, okay.
So they're probably the 3 that I live in the most.
Okay, and on your phone, not just your desktop or anything like that. You're using them on your phone too.
No, that's on my phone. So awesome. I can do all of that, which is great. So keep in contact, keep across what's going on, just the way we've got things structured. But they're the 3.
So are you one of those dreaded people that dial into a team meeting from your car and it's wobbly and you give everybody car sickness on the team meeting?
Well, I have been known to do that. Yes. Yep. Haven't quite got the phone set up in the car yet, or those straps where people can be anywhere and they have the green screen behind them. I don't know if you've seen that on socials. It's pretty funny. Yeah, that's not me. No,
and that's
I am in the office today, so it's all right.
Very good. Well, and that's not me too, because I'd end up running into something. I can't do 2 things at once, so I can't be out and about while talking on a team meeting. That's not going to work.
It's funny, some of that stuff. But
It is. All right, so let's sort of dive into Microsoft and 365, and I'm actually really interested in this discussion because, like I mentioned before we started the recording, we in our advice business some years ago made the decision to go to G Suite. But I was an avid user of Microsoft prior to that. And in fact, years ago was an analyst. So I was heavily into Excel back then. I was one of those sort of full-on hardcore users of Excel. So let's sort of take a step back and, stick with us, listeners, because we are going to have to go to the basics first and then we're going to dive in. So Microsoft 365 is in that silly productivity category, right? I don't know what they mean by productivity because that implies that every other app not in that category is not productive. So I don't quite understand why we call it that.
It's a productivity suite is what Microsoft love to call it.
Right, exactly. I guess that's a good thing. If it's going to give us a jolt of productivity, that's awesome. But that's sort of the core is then, your Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook? Is that sort of the core parts of?
Yeah, so if we go sort of look at the framework, Microsoft 365 is their cloud version of essentially emails where it started.
Yep.
So prior to the big boom around cloud, people would have email servers in their office running Microsoft Exchange. Now, Microsoft then went, right, we're going to move that to the cloud and we're going to call it, I think they called it Business Productivity Suite originally. BPOS, I think was the technical term. And then it changed to Office 365. And that's where we've got email in the cloud. And we do have our Word, Excel, PowerPoint, those common apps that we use.
Yeah.
Now, they're the ones that everyone's familiar with and have been familiar with forever.
Right.
You've had the whatever version of Windows, you'd have your Office 97, Office 2003, whatever it was. It's now just called Office 365.
Okay, Office 365. Now, you mentioned something actually there because I just wanted to jump back on it because there may be some listeners here who haven't recognized this as an evolution. Is there any reason really that a business should have their email servers still sort of local rather than in the cloud? Is there any reason somebody should do that? No. Okay.
Not really. Look, we do still have clients who do have it running locally, and that's not a technical decision. It's barely even a business decision. It's really around we're just not ready to move.
Okay.
And particularly for larger organizations, we see that. So, but for the small and mid-market, there is no reason, no value to have
no
have an email
sort of
server.
Security or anything like that that's any different. Okay.
You're at more risk having it on site than you would be in the cloud.
Okay. Well, that's probably a surprise for some people, right? Because it feels like you can put a wall around it when it's local. When it's in your office.
There is that. There's that physical element that you can put a wall around it. But if you really look at it from a technical perspective, the amount of money and investment it would take for you to implement the security controls that Microsoft do out of the box on your own system, you wouldn't do it because it's too costly. Whereas going to the cloud, we have multi-factor authentication straight out of the box. It's there. Locked down, secured. That's a whole additional implementation if you were trying to do that yourself.
Fantastic. Okay, so that's really good insight. Before we sort of dive into the more of the beyond the ones we just mentioned, I did want to ask a couple of things. So, I mean, is Access still something that people use? I remember Microsoft, MS Access being the database tool. Okay, but is it unlikely? Is it the sort of thing that somebody who hasn't used it should look at, or is it really an older? Okay, it's an older product.
It's sort of a legacy thing there. Look, there are still people that use it and they'll upgrade it and continue to do, but it's generally been something that's been done back in the day and it's just continued to evolve the new version. But with where the other platforms and products are now, it'd be a very unusual need to have or want to use Access.
Yeah, okay. And I guess that's part of what the challenge that Microsoft faces is, I mean, they are in most machines globally. So they are dealing with every evolution of user. And so they can't just willy-nilly go, nope, not doing that anymore because
not there anymore.
Because they truly are, schools that might have had a machine that's 10 years old or, like all sorts of places.
Yeah. I mean, we can walk into an organization and find a machine in the corner that's still running the oldest version of Windows you've ever seen because there's this one application that someone built in 1995 on an Access database and they just haven't decided or haven't been able to or haven't had the want to move it or change it.
Yeah, okay. And look, I should have explained, listeners, that Tom owns Wyntec. You're found
Wyntec,
and Wyntec is a consulting, fantastic consulting firm that based in Brisbane but works nationally with businesses to assist with all things IT and things like we're going to be talking about today. So he isn't from within Microsoft. And what I loved about that is that we can have these debates. We can really be quite frank about what works, what doesn't, and the evolution. Because I think lots of us with these tools that we almost forget are software. I mean, I think we almost forget they're apps and tools that we choose. They're just on our machine, and so we just turn them on.
There.
Yeah, so
there we go. Yep.
I think we sort of, having a deep discussion about this is important. Now, the other one that I actually hadn't seen before, once again, because I haven't used it for a while, is Publisher. And for the 2 seconds I looked, is that sort of halfway between Word and PowerPoint? Like, is it a sort of...
No, Publisher's probably more along the lines of like an Adobe Illustrator and things like that.
Okay.
So creating marketing brochures and bits and pieces. I don't see it heavily used. Some people still use it. Most people are probably, if they're into that heavy-duty marketing side of things, they're using something like Adobe, the Adobe suite.
And even for a small business, we use Canva a lot for that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's right. All that sort of stuff.
Right, so much available and it's so flexible and so many templates. Love a good template.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
You get lost in that place.
Right, it's fun. It's my equivalent of doom scrolling on social media as I just dive into Canva and have a whole lot of fun with the templates. It's hysterical. So then, so that's the core. And then just to create the picture, then we have all the rest, Teams, OneDrive, Forms, Planner, OneNote, I wrote down Flow, Power Automate, Bookings, SharePoint, right? Yep. So there's all these other things around it. Are most of those then like an add-on, as in a sort of subscriber extra? How does that work? So
most people are probably paying for it already.
Okay.
So when you buy your Microsoft 365 subscription, there's different versions, basic. I mean, in this market, and for the listeners, you're probably using Business Basic, Business Standard, or Business Premium.
Yep.
Now, I don't know how deep you want me to go on those, essentially, you've got your Business Basic, which is more of the cloud-only sort of offer.
Right.
So you don't get the desktop applications with your Business Basic.
Okay.
So you don't get the full version of Word and Excel.
Yep.
You use everything in the browser.
Okay.
Which is probably more closely aligned with like the Google G Suite sort of approach.
Yep.
Where everything's online, you're not really using any local apps and things like that.
Yeah.
Business Standard gives you then all the cloud functionality, and it gives you the desktop apps. What everyone's familiar with, the full version of Word, Excel, Outlook, all the bits that go with it. And then Business Premium really then has all of that, plus it's got a whole security suite wrapped around it, which is really important where we are today.
Yes.
Now, within all of those, you get access to email, OneDrive, Teams, Planner. What else do we say? OneNote. You get access to Forms is in there.
Okay.
Bookings is in Standard and Premium.
And the automation one, Flow or Power Automate, whatever that is?
Flow and Power Automate are in all of those.
Okay.
And there are then additions to that to do more advanced things. So we can touch on that.
Okay,
so they give you a taste of everything.
Yeah.
And probably the big one that's included that not many people really leverage is SharePoint.
Okay.
Being in there. And that's a really core piece to the whole online productivity, and then building your automation out from there. That becomes the core of all your data. That's essentially it.
So it's is it almost like the blanket over all of them that sort of can see it all?
Think about it that way. So things like where you would typically have files stored on a file server, or in Dropbox or on OneDrive. That's SharePoint becomes that repository for all of that data. It becomes your intranet. So you can have your news and your posts and all the bits up there. You can have feeds and weather and whatnot, but really structured around where are people going to go to find the information they need to do their job.
Right. Okay. And so like there's OneDrive and there's SharePoint. Is it either or? Is it and?
No, it's or.
Okay.
I'll say it's for a specific need. So there's actually three. You've got OneDrive, and the way to look at that is one person, one user. Okay.
So
it ideally is your
personal situation,
personal storage.
Okay.
So OneDrive's great. You put OneDrive. So OneDrive for Business is what's included in your 365 suite. And just to confuse things, Microsoft have OneDrive Personal as well.
Okay, good.
Same product, different login. Very painful. But for organizations, you'd have OneDrive for Business. Now, if you're familiar, it's the little app that you install on your machine, and it will sync your data from your PC up to the cloud. In a business scenario, we use it extensively to redirect things like your My Documents go into there, your desktop points to that, your pictures and stuff like that. So if your PC ever dies, you just get a new PC, put that app on, and all your data comes back.
And you're all good. Okay.
And away you go. So that's OneDrive. You can then share out of OneDrive. So as an individual, you can control who you want to give access to data to.
Yeah.
So whether it's someone in the business, whether it's someone outside. So you control that. What you don't want to be doing is setting up your entire business structure in your business storage in OneDrive.
Okay. And which I bet you see a fair bit of, because people sort of misunderstand what it is. They think it's the same as a Dropbox for Teams or whatever.
Correct.
And use it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
And use it that way. And it's not.
Okay.
So what you've got to, if it's because it's that personal element, one person will set that up and they'll set up a structure and then they will share that folder with someone, and it's up to them to manage that. And it gets really, really ugly, really messy.
Okay.
So that's a no-no in our sort of view.
Okay.
That's where SharePoint comes into it.
Okay. All right.
So SharePoint is the share.
Right.
Shared with everyone internally. We can create external sharing. We can invite people in. We can do all sorts of stuff.
Okay. So then if you're in your small business, SharePoint is where all of the business documents stuff lives, whereas the OneDrive might be where it's almost like it's the channel or backup from the individual's machine. That might be something that's personal, but it's not
working documents, things like that.
Okay,
like you might be working on a tender or something, and it's just you working on it.
Yeah,
it's not really need to be visible to everyone. So you'd save that in your OneDrive. You work on it, which means you can access it anywhere you want.
Yeah,
when it's ready to be published to the wider business, you just push it up into SharePoint, into the client folder, or however you want it structured.
Okay,
so,
perfect.
Yeah.
Look, I think that's probably really helpful. There'll be some people listening like, we've been using this the wrong way. I'm betting that's quite common when you go into businesses.
It is.
Because it is hard to – look, the language used in tech is hard to begin with, and then you'll hear a description and these things sound exactly the same. And it's like, well, you know, how am I meant to pick? What am I meant to –
And this is the real challenge. And Microsoft – in all their genius, they've got these awesome tools, but they don't really give people, end users, any sort of real direction around best case scenarios and things like that. So you'll have scenarios. OneDrive we can isolate, but then you get into things like Teams and SharePoint. Teams is built on top of SharePoint, which just adds to the confusion. So, but it's understanding the best use case for your organization.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. And I'm betting that invariably there's some pain in that process. Like invariably, when you make that sort of transition, you've probably been using something that's either personal or a bit restrictive and coping through a whole lot of structure and rules. And then you need to transition to really get effectiveness for sharing with a team. And there is some pain in that. But I think, you know, once you do make that change, then I think, you know, you'd be stunned. People would be stunned how smooth it can make things. You know?
It's amazing. And you did say it, what you said there, it's the pain in the change. And it's not so much the technical element of taking it from one spot to the other. That's neither here nor there. That's a process we go through. It's the users. I used to always do it this way, and this is the way I want to do it.
Yeah.
Well, we're not doing it that way anymore. This is how we're going to do it, and more importantly, this is why we're going to do it this way.
Yes. Well, and I'm betting, like in the coaching and sort of speaking I've done in not so much in tech space, it's sort of process. You know, it's just getting efficient and things like that. I find it's the business leader that's the worst one. Often they're the ones that can't let go of the old way. You know.
Yeah, that's very true.
That's good. We'll do that for everything. Everybody in the team do it this way, but I'm still going to do it that way.
I'm going to keep doing it this way.
No. That's not.
We've all got to jump in.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you've got to go in. But I think the key thing people get stuck on in some of these projects as well is they think they have to get it right from day one. Now, particularly with SharePoint and Teams and Microsoft in that, it's designed to be fluid.
Yeah.
So the way we work with our clients is very much right. Let's go through a process. Let's understand where your data currently sits and how it's structured. This is what it can look like in SharePoint. This is where we'll put things and how it works. But if it's not right on day one, or you use it for 3 months and you go, that's not right, we can just move it.
Yeah.
It's up in the cloud now. We can shuffle it, we can change it, we can adapt.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
It's designed to do that.
And I think the thing about the cloud that I see that most people don't take advantage to of is the whole linking direct from one thing to another. So you might be in your CRM and you're dealing with a particular client. Well, in the sort of more manual way, then you're trying to find something you'd sent to the client previously, or work you've done, and you go and you subfolder, dig down, find the thing. Whereas I mean, we've now got links direct from the CRM to that client's folder, so that click straight in, right? Exactly. And and those things sound small, but you do that 40 times a day. So anything, that can get you back few minutes multiplied by 40, I think makes a bit. And I'm betting that's a lot of what happens once people really get on top of the Microsoft sort of suite of tools, is they can really get back multiple minutes everywhere.
Well, I'll give you a huge example of what we see is that you're working on a proposal, for example, or an advice document or something like that. You're working on it. You need someone in your team to review that. What most people will do is they'll attach that file to an email. They'll send that file over an email. Someone will open that file. They'll make changes in that file. They'll send back that copy. You've then got to work out which copy they made and update those. Imagine doing that with 3, 4, 10 people. Like you end up with 15 versions of it. Put it in SharePoint in one location. Everyone works on the same file. Everyone's working in the same file at the same time, and we can actually see who's making what changes on the fly. The amount of time that saves is amazing. And that's just one little thing by not sending an email, or when you send the email, you send a link instead of the file.
And I think the other sort of mindset then that often needs to change too is lots of people use email as their to-do list. So they wait for somebody to email them something, and they're like, I've got to do that. Instead of having that either in your CRM or elsewhere, where that's what drives what you do in the day, and that's where handover, might happen, or that sort of thing. They do this whole email backwards and forwards. I mean, it's crazy.
And forwards and that.
Right. It's
But again, we look at there's tools aplenty. I mean, we've got all these off the shelf other products we could use, Asana and Monday and whatever.
Loads.
Huge. We've got it in Microsoft Planner. We'll do 80% of a lot of those tools by itself.
Well, now I had that noted down. Why don't we dive into that a second while we're on the topic?
Jumping all over the shop. Sorry.
We have. Yeah, sorry, listeners. We'll get there, I promise. So Microsoft Planner, is this project upgraded? The old Microsoft project?
No, it's project cut down.
Okay.
It's the other way.
Because project was pretty horribilis, to be fair.
Yeah, project is a massive, massive tool, and it takes a lot to get it to work well. Very few organizations, particularly in financial services and accounting, would have really any value within using Microsoft Project. Whereas Planner, on the other hand, it's a very simply structured task management system for your team. Think of it, I don't know if people have used Asana, where you've got your buckets of tasks. Exactly the same concept. We create a bucket, or we create a plan. We create a bucket. We invite our team into that plan. And then we can start assigning tasks and creating tasks and scheduling tasks and all that. It will send reminders. We can add notes. We can link to files that are all over our Microsoft. That then can actually flow into your Outlook. So you have a view in Outlook for all of your to-do items across your Outlook personal tasks and your planner tasks and all this sort of stuff. So it starts to tie it all together.
Yeah, nice. And so is that the sort of place then that you might do something like a deal pipeline, something that's sort of that snapshot
we've
for the business?
That. Yep. So we've seen people use it as a very basic CRM or deal pipeline in that sense. Suspect, discovery, open, quoted, closed, and they can drag their tasks through it that way. Works well for that.
Because it's something that, so that work in progress, or, that sort of thing that's transitioning, and just keeping an eye on that as a team, in the team meeting, let's take a look. It's not something that's necessarily easy to do in most of our tools in advice. So, something that could help have that picture, and keep that momentum. I think it's hard when you're handling multiple sort of, demands. How do you keep that momentum with things? So that's interesting. Okay. So
anything like that is quite good. And then, as you say, use it in your weekly meetings, your daily stand-ups, those type of things. And it's visual. Everyone can see it. You can integrate it into your Microsoft Teams, so it becomes that point as well. And it's just visible.
And that's probably something most of us don't do enough of. We're trying to retrain ourselves in our team is instead of having meeting, via Teams or whatever video version thing you use, and then after somebody's, assigning tasks or somebody's doing whatever. Now, any meeting we have internally, we have those things shared, or if people are viewing it and we're live adding things. We're just at the end of the meeting, it's all done. It's assigned.
Done. Walk away.
Ticked.
We all know what we're going to do.
Exactly. So I think, those sort of things can make a big difference too. All right. So we sort of went down a rabbit hole a little there. I do want to just sort of get your take, and this might be a hard question. Do you see certain businesses being more likely to be Microsoft versus, say, G Suite or not? Or is there any sort of lean? I mean, I guess just from my take, Microsoft has got much closer to where G Suite, now that they're in the cloud and they're doing all these things that are interacting and connected, it's sort of they're probably more similar than they were, some time ago. I'm betting that the search, therefore that sort of general search through all your stuff is easier in Microsoft than it used to be. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's getting there. Look, I mean, Google were obviously the leader to it. They're the ones that came out with that whole suite from the beginning, and Microsoft were playing a lot of catch up.
Yep.
And to be perfectly fair, it really comes down to a personal preference.
Yeah, okay.
And it normally is driven by leadership and the owners in that sense. I like Microsoft, or I like Google.
Yep.
That's really it.
Yeah, okay.
However, when you look at it a bit wider, you've got to look at team structure, team dynamics, the people in your team. What have they used?
Yeah.
When you look at it, most people will turn on Outlook, Word, Excel, and can start right then and there and know exactly how to use it and get around and be effective in their job. If you're going from Microsoft to Google, it's a significant change in the way you do things. And if you're going to do it, you've got to go all in as well.
Oh, yeah.
There's no point going, I'm just going to move my email and my docs over to here, but I still want everyone to use Word, Excel, PowerPoint. You're now paying for 2 subscriptions as well.
Yeah, and it lets people hang back. We learned that the hard way. You just
you've
can't.
Got to go all in.
You've got to sort of effectively turn off the other. No, nobody, and go to the other. And I think there is one of the not challenges, but one of the considerations in financial advice, of course, is, we're numbers, it's finance. And so, Google Sheets is never going to be anywhere near Excel in terms of true depth of spreadsheeting. So, in a business, if you really go hardcore Excel, if you're that numbers geek, then Google Sheets will never give you that. It's not designed to. Right. Now, to be fair, I would argue that 99.99% of Excel users never use any of that stuff.
Correct.
So it's fine.
Correct.
They think, a spreadsheet is literally just lines, it's a page with lines on it and boxes. They think that's what a spreadsheet is. And so that's great. I think then Excel and Google Sheet, I mean, they're the same, it does the same thing. Yeah. But for a sort of hardcore advanced user, you just won't be able to do what you are used to doing. All of that, macros, all that stuff.
All that sort of stuff. Yeah. Look, and I think there's been a sort of point where, as I say, Google started that process, and they designed their whole platform to be fully online.
Yeah.
Whereas Microsoft history has all been local. That's their history.
Yeah.
So Microsoft has sort of come in the other way. But what Microsoft have done, in my opinion, and I'm a little bit biased because I do like Microsoft, exceptionally well, is that it's now one. It doesn't matter. I can run my full version of Word, but all my data's in the cloud in real time. So it doesn't matter. And I can get the full experience that I'm used to. If I really just want to check something really quickly, I can use the online version of Word. I can go through and review a file really fast. Or if I need to do some editing and inserts, I can just open up in Word and away I go.
Yeah, okay.
And that's the same. And that's the same for Outlook as well.
Yeah, okay. And so that's a fundamental difference though, isn't it? Is that the local version of this has more juice. So, it has more juice, more functionality, more things, whereas the online version is sort of for convenience. It's a quick look, a little bit of an edit maybe, but it's not designed for sitting in.
It's getting better, but it's not. I personally wouldn't see anyone really sitting in it day to day, trying to create proposals and all that sort of stuff. Review, edit, quick updates, that sort of stuff. Perfect. No problems at all.
Awesome. Now, one of the things I did want to sort of ask is, there'll be advisors listening to this, there'll be business owners, but also all of the support team. And I guess I had a question when you go into businesses and you're sort of tidying them up and getting them into shape. Do you find that there's members of the team that could really benefit with some more training in tools that maybe people don't expect that they would use? Do you find, there's admin teams that never have had Excel training or, that sort of thing? Is there something that people could really sort of lift their game on that might enhance the whole business?
Yeah, look, I think it's I think that the first start is the awareness piece around, does everyone know what's available to them?
Right.
Does everyone know what's there? Because the amount of times we'll go in and people they're still using Zoom, but they've already got Teams.
Yeah.
Little things like this. They might be, Calendly is another one. Everyone uses Calendly to do you can do bookings now. Like it's there.
I didn't even know that
it becomes
existed. Yeah, absolutely.
it's little things like that. And whilst they're not big, but you look at an organization, 3, 4, 10, 15, 20 people, and I need to license Calendly so we can all be effective. Well, that's another subscription.
Yeah.
If we made a little bit of an awareness and people are a little bit aware about the tools, and Microsoft are horrible at letting people know what they've actually got access to.
Right, okay.
Click your little button. If you're familiar with, anyone who's familiar with your portal.office.com, you've got your little 9 buttons up the top left. When you click that, you've just got this list of apps that you can use.
Okay.
But unless you really know what they are. So the first thing, back to the question, is awareness.
Yeah.
If we can make your teams aware of what's available.
Yep.
Because then what they will do instinctively, and it just happens, I'll just have a bit of a tinker with this and
check
see
it out. Yeah.
And once they start to understand the capabilities of it, that's where they go, actually, you know what? Could we do this with it? Can we do this? We've got a whole lot of ideas for organizations that you can do, but it's got to be driven internally. Otherwise, it doesn't get adopted. And that's a key thing we see. We can come in and go, we're going to automate this process for you. And they go, oh, hang on. No, that's not going to work. It doesn't work for us. Automation doesn't work. Well, how about you play with this for a little bit? And they go, actually, it'd be a really cool idea if we automate this. Yeah, great. Well, let's go and do that. So it's a little bit there. I think the awareness piece. And Microsoft do have some good online resources about that and stuff like that.
Okay.
Even the how-tos and things like that. The help is pretty good within Microsoft for the deep dive stuff. But to your point, hardcore Excel training, that's just going to be if someone is really into that. Hardcore Word training. Most of it is there and it's quite intuitive.
It is. What's interesting though, I do find is even in these core ones, and let's use Outlook as an example. This is something that people, literally live in. Like it's the first thing opened, last thing closed. And you spend more time with Outlook than you do your partner. Really. So
true.
Right.
Yeah, never thought about that. True. Yep.
So it's a whole lot of time, but I think a lot of people are really using these things at surface level.
They are.
Filters and automatic responses and automatic archives for stuff. I always just archive that. Well, set up a filter that automatically archives it. I think there's some extra curiosity required of people to really amp up their usage of these tools.
And it's hard. From our perspective, we're sort of not geared to provide that level of training and stuff. So, but there are, and again, we can provide tools and stuff. But you're right. Outlook's a great example. With most people use it for email and calendar and tasks. That's great. But if you just tweak your view a little bit, your calendar and your tasks become very, very powerful. Like the way. And I've actually gone and done training for this using Outlook more effectively to manage zero inbox and stuff like that. Never got to zero inbox, but some of the tools that came out would just change the view, make your calendar appear here and your tasks appear under there, and drag your tasks to which day you need to do them. And just little things like that has improved productivity. And now when we add that, with Microsoft have now integrated some additional bits from Planner, I can click a button in my Outlook and I can see all my personal tasks that I've created in Outlook. I can see all my calendar entries and I can see all my Planner tasks from all the plans that we use across the business all in one spot.
Awesome. Yeah.
So it's just little things like that where you can start to play and you'll start to see benefits once you start using multiple tools as well.
And I think the thing about automation is for people who don't regularly implement or do it or look for it, it sounds like building this big thing. Like automation sounds like a robot, right? It sounds like a complex thing. Whereas some of the best automation we've ever done in the business and repeatedly do is a small thing done over and over again. And you just keep on looking for that. And just like I said, the emails from a location that you just keep on archiving. Now, aside from unsubscribing, which is the other option, if you just go, I just want to save those, then you're doing something repetitive. You're dragging them in. Well, just make that happen. Just make
it a rule.
Right, exactly.
Rules are the simplest form of automation in a business.
And it's perfect, and even forwarding. So if you look at your emails and you go, oh, that one's meant to go to that team member, that one's meant to go to that team member. Yep. If you really start looking, it may be the subject line, it may be the email it comes from. You could probably, use a rule to forward it automatically.
Forward it on. Yeah, that's right. So, and they're the most basic personal automation tasks that you can do, which, again, people have to be, I guess, aware and thinking about those things. Yep. Otherwise, business, you get so busy, you just said doing. You've got to take that one step back and go, why am I doing that? Do I need to be doing that? And it comes down. I mean, what's the quadrant thing? The important, must do, those sort of. You look at that and you go, do I actually need to be doing this, or can I create a rule that's going to forward it to my PA or my assistant or whoever needs to actually do that?
Exactly. And I think this is something that does need to come from leadership. So we actually have in our team meetings, there is a one of the topics or questions we ask is, hey, is there something you're doing repetitively that you think you'd like us to look into how we could automate? Like just making everybody aware that repetition is where automation lives. This is
correct.
The place to look for it is repetition. So and that is a mindset thing. I would encourage listeners to, anytime I'm going, how do I do this, or is there a good idea? I literally Google the entire question. How do I automate putting an email from here to here? And there will be YouTube channels entirely dedicated to walking
Google
you
is
through.
Your friend.
It really is. And so, people go, oh, I don't know how to do that. Ask the question in Google and you'll find there is something step by step. They're so good now too. There's people whose bread and butter is stepping you through this stuff.
Everyone's done. There's nothing that hasn't been done before.
No.
It's just how you bring it together and make it work for you.
Correct.
In that sense. And that's the thing we see as well. It's not that we're recreating anything in a lot of the stuff we do.
Yeah.
It's just helping people get to that point that they can use it more effectively.
Nice.
Yep.
And in terms of sort of ninja stuff, is there anything you've seen or you've even suggested for business, some hacks that have just immediately delivered value? It could be within those basic sort of core apps, or it could be adding on others. Is there anything that's sort of an automatic, wow, we just find people should do this?
I think using Teams effectively is probably a big one.
Okay.
So a lot of people install Microsoft Teams and they're probably using it for chat. And one of the things they're probably finding is that they've got data all over the place and they can't find it.
Right.
So it's just getting that structure right. So if I was to say anything, is look at where your data is, who needs access to it, and then identify the right spot for it. That's the key thing. So not everything should live in Teams. In fact, nothing that's corporate should live in Teams unless it's being worked on.
Yeah. Okay.
It needs to be in SharePoint. That's kind of it.
It's not a home. It's a channel. It's a tool.
A channel.
Yeah,
it's a collaboration.
Okay.
That's exactly what it's designed for.
Okay.
And then the other thing is create those views and add the common stuff that people need to see. So use your Teams to bring in your planner so people don't have to go somewhere else.
Okay.
Or in fact, use your Teams to create a plan so people know what they need to do.
Yeah, okay. So that's almost dashboard style. Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
okay.
You can bring it in. If you're familiar with Teams, you can create your team and then you have your tabs, and it's bringing in the relevant information to that particular team.
Yeah.
So when they've only got one spot to go to, I can go in here, I can chat to the team, I can collaborate on these documents, and I can find the tasks that I'm working on.
Awesome. Okay.
So little things like that.
Yeah, perfect. Now, let's talk client facing. Is there some things in the Microsoft sort of family that can really bring the client closer, that can help that level of interaction that you think people might be unaware of or should use?
Bookings is one.
Yes.
So Microsoft Bookings gives you the ability to create, whether it's a product or a service or a meeting offering, where you can either have, and then you can. Basically what it does is you create it, you say, I want this to be available at these times.
Yep.
And then I want to be able to see these people's calendars in that view. So you publish that then to a client. Client can go, I need a meeting, one-on-one intro kickoff meeting. Well, there might be 3 people in the organization who can do that meeting.
Mm-hmm.
We create one product up the front. We integrate these 3 people within the business, and this will automatically display when they're available so the client can book in straight away.
Fantastic.
Creates the meeting, sends the Teams invite, does however you want it set up, and it's done in the calendar, and away we go.
Automagic. That's awesome. I mean, we use Calendly, but if Microsoft concept, have that, that's fantastic, and it makes sense. Can I ask, as an example of that, if you've got, say, a financial advisor always has a physical meeting with the paraplanner with them, so it's like a twofer, with each client.
Yep.
Is Booking smart enough for the client? So the client looks and sees what's available, but Bookings is considered the diary of both the advisor and the planner in that, in terms of showing what's available. Is that something that?
If it's the same paraplanner, you could have them side by side.
Partnered?
And it would probably,
okay.
Yeah, I believe you could. You could probably create a basic flow as well that would allow it to happen.
Okay.
Haven't looked into it, but it's
awesome.
There's potential.
All right. So it really is letting you do and letting people choose the time themselves. I'm assuming it probably lets them reschedule if they need to.
If they
cancel.
need to reschedule.
Like all of that.
That's the hardest thing. I mean, the other little tool that's built into Outlook as well is called Find Time.
Right.
So Bookings allows the client to find a time and book it in. Internally, and even with clients, you've got an app. Have a look at it. It'll be in your Outlook called, if it's not, you can add it for free, Find Time. So you want to book a meeting with 6 people.
Yep.
How hard is you're sending around 15 emails, who's available, what's going on. You can click your Find Time button and it will allow you to then go through, okay, here are the 5 meeting slots that I have available. And it will send it out to everyone and go, pick which ones are good for you, and it will then work out who's available when, and then it will set the meeting for everyone. Yep.
I love that stuff. Like anything that reduces the backwards and forwards, whether it's on email or phone tag, and trying to coordinate, that's fantastic, because that effort to me is idiocy. Like it falls into, and we do it too, that sort of idiotic, not revenue producing, not product, it's just crazy talks. Oh, that's fantastic. I love that tip.
Time. Yeah, it's a cool little tool.
Awesome.
And then probably the other one that you could start to leverage for client-facing stuff is something like Microsoft Forms as a basic data capture sort of tool. It might be an onboarding form. It might be a data collection tool, whatever it is. You can create a form. You can make it public so anyone can then enter in and it will send you the details. Or you can create a specific form for a specific client and they have to log in and do that. So,
so that's probably something that people, once again, might be paying for something else. They might have
there's
type
things
form
like
or others, whatever.
Type form or job form, something like that. Again, it's basic, but it's good. I mean, you can run questions on it. You can capture data. You can do surveys and stuff like that. It can be a very basic survey tool. And then it captures all that data and gives you a bit of result at the back end. So there's that. And then there's a whole lot of stuff on the other side that's more the advanced things where we can create full client portals and all sorts of stuff.
Right. So, okay. So now you mentioned back then Flow. Are Flow and Power Automate the same thing? Are they two different things? They are. Okay. That wasn't clear to me.
Power Platform.
Okay.
Power Platform. And there's a bit of branding challenge for Microsoft, but you've got Power Apps, which is essentially creating applications within your business.
Okay.
Anything you can think of. It might be a leave request form, might be an expense form, might be a CRM, it might be we've done accounts payable processes, all these sorts of things. You create these apps, and that's called Power Apps. And then what drives a lot of the automation is then Power Automate, which is Flow. So if this happens, execute this.
Okay,
triggers, all that sort of stuff.
So for those that have heard me banging on about Zapier before, I'm betting it's very similar. Okay,
similar.
But it's within Microsoft, which is a good thing,
stack.
Right? So that's you're playing in the house you're already in.
Yeah, and it does have external connections as well. So you can connect to external sources and stuff like that. Some of it might be paid licensing additional, but essentially Power App and Flow is included in your Microsoft license.
Okay.
So if you want to access or save data within your Microsoft suite, you've got access to that today. So you could, an example we did for an accounting firm, they have a team of PAs who work for the directors, and they were trying to manage their tasks. So we created a central mailbox. Everyone send your request to here. Then we created a flow that when a mail arrives, pull the mail out, work out who it came from, who it needs to get assigned to, then create a task in Planner for that person.
Fantastic.
Just little thing, and it just goes through. And now they've got that all linked up. So they have a PA team planner where all the PA team, they just live in that, and all their tasks just come through and get allocated and whatnot.
Nice. And thinking about the way, you communicate and via even via a certain email address. I mean, most people probably have something like an info at, but they might use that for lots of different things, where you could get a bit creative about one that's specifically safe for clients, so that when something comes in, get clever about how that's assigned, because it is
how we do something with that.
It's a struggle when it goes direct to an individual, because if they're on leave or it can sit in somebody's inbox, and it's a pet peeve I have of how that occurs. So that's actually a bit of a ninja tip there. I love. What about things like, could you do with Flow? Financial advisors, we get, the economist from one of the banks or one of the fund managers sends out their monthly economic report, which is an attachment to an email. Is it the sort of thing where, okay, when this type of email comes in, rip off that attachment and save it over here, maybe set me a task to read it in a week, that sort of thing? It's like, okay.
All of that,
perfect.
All the way through to what are the processes in your business that you do? Are you capturing data on a manual form? Are you then scanning that, or are you doing something with it? We can use Power Apps and Power Automate to create that form electronically. So you can capture all that. Might be an application form, for example.
Yeah.
So we did this for a client where clients were sending in application forms manually.
Yes.
And then our client would have to then print that out, do something with it, scan it in, send it to someone. It was a nightmare. So we basically changed it. The client at the moment still fills in their paper form and sends it through, but it comes into a central location. We pick up that file, we save it somewhere, we create a form around it so we can enter in the additional data we need, submit it, goes to someone for approval, they mark it as approved, and then it gets saved in their document management system.
Oh, fabulous.
Things like that. So it's looking at you're taking it next level up. You have your personal stuff we talked about before. What personally can I automate? Take it up the next level and look at your business and where things happen.
Yeah.
Is there a manual form that someone is filling out and waiting to get signed?
Oh, we have a lot of those.
Make it electronic. And you could then extend that over time to be a client could log into a portal, fill in the form electronically, upload whatever they need, submit it to you guys. You go through your approval process. You haven't had to print one thing. You've captured all the data. It's all logged. It's all audited, and away you go.
Yeah, okay.
So, but the one thing I do say to clients is just start with understanding your own process.
Yes.
Because most people go, this is how we do it, but we don't actually know how we do it. We don't know why we do it that way. It's just the way we've done it. So the very first step in any of these automation discussions should be, let's physically sit down and document your process. Put it on a whiteboard, do something with it. We start here, we go here, we go here, we go here. And then you can go within that process, which part would make sense to add a little bit of automation or some electronic. Don't even try to do the whole thing at once. Just go, I want to do this bit.
Well, and interestingly, you've just given me a bit of a light bulb there. I mean, I'm obsessed with like process diagrams and critical paths and all that sort of stuff. But separating what the process is, but ignoring who does it. This is the process, because
this is the process.
That separates. We often attach the steps to the person, and I think it can restrict the automation because we assume that person then has to do something and say hand it over or do whatever. When if you just described it without attaching the person, you're like, oh, wait a minute. Why are we doing that? We've got 3 steps in there we don't need. So, so the description that's separate from the human being, and advisors, I think in advice we do that a lot because the assumption is the advisor's sort of central to all of that when they often don't need to be. They often don't need to be the first point or the last point. It just
how do we free them up to do what they do?
100%.
100%. That's the key thing, and that's the key thing with automation across a business. I mean, a lot of people get defensive around automation because, but what are these people going to do?
Yeah,
I can tell you they're going to do 400 other things than that mundane task.
Yes,
and that's the thing. But people get attached to it. That's my role. If that's being automated, what do I do?
Right.
I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to do that. When we talk to clients about automation, it's not about how many people can we replace. It's about how can we do more with what you've got today? How can we free those people up so you as a business can redirect them into more valuable tasks that a person should be doing?
Yes, a human being. And I think, in advice, I think we've gone through a period, I mean, the heavy legislation, change, form this, all that sort of stuff. And so I think we could mistake what we do as just lots of paper and forms. And the truth is not a single member of our team should just be that. And so taking on this sort of action and empowering them that if we can free you up, and sometimes that is about the leadership pitch. If we free you up from this, we can get you also to do this. You've got to paint that picture. What would be the next thing? What might they be designing, creating, adding value to, reaching out for, whatever that might be. And, for us, any of this stuff just means we can take longer to chat to the client. We can do random check-ins. We can, all that's really free-flowing stuff that nobody gets any time to do because we're just, form in, sign, hand over. Like it's just.
Well, that's right. As advisors, you want to be talking to your clients to understand. It's a conversation where you learn the most with them. Yeah. It's not a form that they fill out and it's not this. Right. It's that conversation about, I just picked that up. Okay, well, let's talk about that next time, whatever it is, or I'll put that in the plan for you and things like that.
Yeah.
If you're so time constrained because I've got to go fill this form out, do this, get this submitted, blah, 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 it takes away from that. And we see it in our business. It's one of the challenges is we want to free our team up to be talking to people from a support perspective.
Right.
When we talk to people about the problems they're having, it's actually not the issue they've rung up about. It's something else that's generally causing it. So we've got to have time for those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So in terms of, the development path going forward, is there anything you're aware of that's coming or that they're enhancing or that, a current sort of user, Microsoft or 365 user should be, waiting for or keeping an eye out for?
No, there's nothing that I would say
like
wait for this or do that.
Yeah, okay.
Nothing that I've seen. But the amount of change and development that continues to come through is immense. It is huge. There's days we can't even keep up with the new features that are being released.
Okay.
Which is great. It has its own set of challenges about when they change stuff and do things. But the big areas that they're developing out really is around that Power Automate and Power Apps.
Yes.
Lots and lots of development from Microsoft in that space.
Okay.
Artificial intelligence, machine learning, all these sort of things out of the box.
Yeah.
So things like we can take a PDF file via email, we can put it through an AI tool, which within Power Apps and within the platform, which will then go, okay, that's the invoice number, that's the client number, that's the date, put it into this form. So it now becomes electronic so we can then put that through a process.
Wow.
So things like that. And they're all coming. Some of that's here now within that Power App platform. There's tools externally that have always been able to do that. You can go buy add-ons and stuff, but just within that suite, these are the things that are coming and that are here that we can start to leverage.
And what's so powerful about this stuff is, if we go 15, 20 years back, then that was the stuff that only places like the big banks had access to, and they had access to it with a $20 million price tag. Like there were these huge, development exercise, and a small business, well, no chance, whereas now we're truly, if you are creative enough and you ask enough questions, then you have access to top end of town effectiveness and efficiency. Like it's,
and this,
and in fact, exactly probably be able to implement faster and more effectively than a big business can.
Yep. Exactly. As a small medium business, you can adapt very, very quickly and implement these things and change it. And it's that fail fast approach. You're going to do stuff that's not going to work, but just keep doing it because it will work and you will find the solution.
Yeah.
And things like that. But as I say, it's take the time, and again, it's always about finding that time. Step back and go. The biggest thing I say to clients is, what are the 3 things in your business that give you the shit?
Yeah.
Sorry for swearing, but
Not at all.
What are the 3 things in the business that give you that? Because I can guarantee if you spend even an hour looking at one of them, you will find an efficiency that you can tweak, you can change, but more so you'll go, you know what? If we actually spend a bit more time on it, we can revolutionize how we do that.
Yes.
And that's not difficult. It's just, as you say, asking the right questions, talking to the right people, getting the right team in there, pulling the right people from your business in there and go, right, let's sit down. We did it last week with a client 2 weeks ago, 90-minute session. They're a funds manager.
Yep.
90-minute session. And we pulled apart their entire lending process and just mapped it out and went, right, okay, we can automate 3/4 of that now.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've still got a lot of work to develop and do that, but it's opened their eyes and gone, oh, that person can now be doing that over there.
Yes.
Oh, we can get this extra data captured here, which gives us visibility for that. So it's all that sort of stuff.
And identifying those deep frustrations, I call them pirate problems because they're, right?
So, there we go. I like that one, yeah.
But identifying those and resolving them, and you're right, it can just be 2 or 3,
Yep.
the weight that gets lifted off the team, I mean, they will be skipping down the street. Whereas the danger is, as business owners or leaders, we find something else that's a new shiny thing as a way to chase that and don't solve the immediate, most painful problem, you know? And years back, the one I used to see a lot, not so much anymore, but was the hideously slow scanner in the office. So this poor person was trying to scan every day hundreds of pages and just, you know, standing there like like the sloth in that movie Zootopia or whatever, just like scanning, waiting. And you just upgrade it, spend a few $100s more, and things happen like this. And the difference in their outlook and their energy, you know, so solve, like you say, find those frustrations, and instead of almost avoiding them because we feel like it's hard to solve those, look, with a bit of creativity, maybe some help, like somebody from yourself, then you probably can really nail them. And the team just love it. It's better than a friggin' party. Like they just like, woohoo, you know.
And there's things that are not going to get solved overnight, and that's fine. But if even if you're presenting a plan to the team, and you know, I mean, business is hard as it is, and you're right. It's we've got to get stuff done. We've got to find the new things. We've got to be constantly developing. But we leave these things behind because I think it's working. Yeah, it might be painful, but it's working. But it's not being efficient.
Yes. Yes.
And there's so much, and particularly in today's climate where recruitment is really hard.
Yes.
We've got to retain our staff, all these sorts of things. Automation, artificial intelligence, machine learning, these are all things that small businesses can start to look at today.
Yes.
To potentially not even need to employ that next person.
Right. And
because I've got someone sitting here already who could do it if I free them up.
And all you're doing is taking advantage of something you're already paying for. So it's not a new thing. It's not exactly. So, and I love that idea. Let's use the tools you've already got. Yep. Let's really lean into those and sort of own
leverage
them.
What you're paying for.
Yeah.
It's there and it's just unlocking and going through. And there's going to be a cost to go and build it.
Sure.
But you do it right and you structure right, you're going to get a return.
Yeah.
And you can see that very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Well, I've just freed up, even if it's 4 hours a week, 6 hours a week for that person, that's almost a day of extra time that person can be doing something else.
Absolutely.
So weigh that up. I don't need to go and employ another person now. I can bring on 3 new clients because I've got an extra day for this person to do stuff.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, so true. Is there anything you feel we've sort of not covered or that we should highlight, you know, in the world of Microsoft? I mean, I know I'm asking a bit of an idiotic question
all day, but
well, there's 427 things. So if
we go here, no, look, I think they're the key things. I think one of the things what we've talked about really is you're paying for a license.
Yeah.
You've got a lot more there that you could leverage.
Yeah.
Yeah, there might be some time and effort that you need to put in to turn it on and enable it and things like that, but it's there. Start to just investigate, start to look at it. Take your Microsoft, go all in. As we said, if you're going to go all in, whether it's G Suite or Microsoft
whatever
or whatever,
it is,
go all in that and commit to it from a what else can we do?
Yeah, fantastic.
What else is there? We look at the Microsoft thing because it extends. Yeah, we've talked a lot about business productivity today and automation, all that sort of stuff. Absolutely critical in business, but Microsoft allows us to extend that to security because that is just as critical, particularly in financial services and those type of things.
Absolutely.
The data that you've got on your clients is incredibly
we've got to treat it like gold.
Confidential.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how are you protecting that? What tools are you using? Well, we've got that in the Microsoft suite. We can lock all that down. We can protect it. We can do all those sort of things. So,
Perfect. All righty. Well, you know what, Advice Explorers, if you'd like to find out more about the services that Tom and the Wyntec team provides, then we're going to put the website link in the show notes. We're also going to add Tom's LinkedIn details in there as well. So feel free to stalk / reach out on LinkedIn. But, thank you so much for joining us, Tom. I think there's just so many gems there that people can just start to research right now. This isn't about a new thing. This is about using the one you've got. So thank you very much for your time.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Ooh, wow, we covered a lot there, didn't we? So apologies that we've been nattering away in your earbuds for a little longer than we really intended, but I honestly felt like there was a lot of gems there that Tom was giving us, lots of things that prompted. So, I hope that was really valuable. And I'm really curious, if you're a current user of, Microsoft, the whole gamut, 365 and all the other tools that are related, do you agree or disagree with our discussion on Microsoft? Because please share your insights on the XY platform. Your fellow advisors and other people in the industry will really benefit from any of those ninja hacks you've done, any things you've discovered, any great, wonderful time savers, or truly, effective and efficient things you've implemented just using the Microsoft tools. So I would really encourage you to share. Now, in terms of sort of my thoughts after that, then this sort of discussion really highlighted for me that we all need to schedule an at least annual tech audit. Now, this is simply making, a big old list of all of the technology we have in the practice, every single thing we have access to and pay for, and all of the core elements of it, so you don't list Microsoft 365, you list all of the underlying tools that are included in that. And then working through that list, checking to see whether there's an overlap, or whether we're just making things harder than we need to. This actually happened for us with G Suite. Tom mentioned a similar situation for Microsoft businesses. When we did the audit a couple of years ago, we realized that we had Google Meet as part of the G Suite. That's the video tool or video meetings tool. But we were also paying for Zoom for the whole team to use. So basically we pared back our use of Zoom for just major webinars or large online events. So it was just like a one access. And then we utilized Google Meet for our team, internal video meetings. So I'd really encourage you to do that tech audit. You're not just going to discover overlaps. You're also going to note, I'd encourage you to note down the last time anyone used each of the tools. And invariably, there's going to be some little apps or, extra things that you've bought that you simply don't need anymore. Nobody's using them anymore. So you can get rid of them and save yourself those dollars. If you're not sure how to go about the tech audit, or you're not sure what I mean, please feel free to reach out on the XY community platform and we can chat about it. The other thought that stood out there really, in fact, I'm going to go away and implement this immediately in our practice, is having a client specific email address. So an email address, it could even be, client docs @ for your email that clients use to send things in, for example, or that they email specific questions to, or that they interact with you, so that multiple people can get access to that and it can be assigned. And I love the fact that somebody could send something in and then some automation could strip off the core content, place it in another document or in the CRM or saved somewhere, and even action beyond that. So just changing the ways that, maybe you've got clients that always interact with you as the advisor individually, and you could change that behavior to really ramp up the effectiveness of your service. So that's something that I'm definitely going to look at. And I'd encourage you also to maybe do some digging into that cyber element that Tom was talking about of Microsoft, because it is something we all need to be focusing on. Now, it's only been a few episodes into the AdviceTech podcast for XY, but, I've already had some people reaching out and asking me what I mean when I say Bionic Advisor and Advice Explorers, and whether, it's the same thing or are they different. So I thought I'd take a second to cover that off. A Bionic Advisor for me is an individual that's really heavily focused on the human part of advice and then utilizes technology to enhance that power or strength. It's the best combination of the two. Whereas an advice explorer, this isn't just advisors, right? This is anyone in advice that's avidly curious about how we can utilize technology to streamline our businesses, our workloads, and enhance the customer experience. And they're happy to sort of wander into the unknown a little, right? And see what might be possible in the future evolution of advice. Exploring is a mindset and it takes some practice. So to help you develop that skill, each week I'm going to be bringing to your attention just a little app, I've come across that sort of tweaked my interest and is worth a bit of a looky-loo. So for this week's Curiosity Corner, I'd love you to check out brain.fm. That's not only the name of the app, but it's how the location on the web, brain.fm. And basically, it's music made for your brain. Now, the Brain FM music is all about deep work and focus. And it's made to sort of help you work better by blending music into the background so that you can sort of focus on what you're doing distraction free, all while also stimulating your brain with these sort of, they call them rhythmic pulses in the music that actually support really sustained attention on something. Some people listen to music, when they're working. The problem is other music by definition is designed to grab your attention. So it actually makes it harder to think and work, even if you don't realize that's the case. Whereas, Brain FM's functional sort of music is designed from the bottom up to really affect your brain and optimize your performance. So whenever you need to really focus, get into some deep work, it might be analysis, it might be knocking off a big task you just want to focus on, I'd encourage you to use Brain FM, add in some noise cancelling headphones. And honestly, I generally get about 90 minutes of work done in just 60 minutes or less. It really, really works. And if you're a practice manager or, own a practice, I'd actually encourage you to make a subscription to Brain FM as a gift to your team. Whether they work remotely or not, it can really change the way that they deliver and feel about their work. That's all we've got for this week. It was a little bit of a long one, but please be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you'll get your AdviceTech fix automatically sent to you each week. And if you'd like a speaker at your next event to brief your audience on how they too can become bionic advisors, then please reach out to me on LinkedIn /PeitaMD. That's PEITAMD. Otherwise, I'll look forward to turning up in your earbuds next week. And remember, Advice Explorers, stay curious.